What is Scrum? As somebody who's responsible, likely for large sections of an organization, making it relevant in the 21st century, you've probably heard of Scrum, and we're going to talk about that. But I suspect a more useful conversation is how is Scrum going to help me deliver what I need for the organization? Hi, my name is John McFadyen. I'm a managing partner of Agile Centre. I'm a certified Scrum trainer with Scrum Alliance, and I've been using Scrum for over 20 years in organizations, small and large. I want to talk to you about why it matters. Scrum, as you've probably heard, is a very simple framework. It came about in 1995. It was first presented at the Uppsala conference in the US by Dr. Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schwaber. And they were talking about a project management framework in the early days. Since 1995, it's gone through several evolutions as the community has worked with it and explored its potentials into a product development framework. And today, it's considered a complex problem solving framework. It itself is a great example of agile thinking. This idea of you use things and you adapt them and you evolve them so they're continuing to be useful. Now, Scrum has probably hit your radar, even if you're a senior leader in a business, because it's so common. Today, 86% or something like that of agile implementations have Scrum at their core. And when we add Kanban, it goes up to into the 90s. A huge number of teams working in complex spaces, spaces that require learning as they go. There's no stable problem, never mind solution, are using Scrum and Scrum like approaches to benefit them, to allow them to manage this volatility, this uncertainty, to deliver what a customer needs, not necessarily what they originally asked for. So, how can this be useful to you? Well, I suspect the reasons that your teams are talking about it are the reasons it's being brought to your attention too. As somebody who is looking across the piece, thinking about how do we maintain our relevance in the 21st century? How do we respond to what I can only call an increasingly volatile and uncertain time? How can we as a business truly be fit for the 21st century? Well, Scrum is a great starting place. And it's important to remember it's a framework. It's not telling you everything, it's not trying to tell you everything. Because here's the thing, nobody but you can solve the problem in front of you. Only you have the context and the skills to bring together the right people to talk about the right things at the right time. There is no consultancy out there who knows those answers for you. Scrum is a simple framework, and this is why it's so widely adopted. It's easy to get started. It tries to be as little as possible, providing that scaffolding around your process. You create your process so that it is suitable for the problem you are solving. So if you've looked at software teams, they're likely using Scrum and Scrum-like things, and they're talking about Scrum Masters and sprints and all of this. Okay? That's the reason. That's the reason it's so widely adopted, is because it tries to be the minimum. Scrum at its heart says we work in short periods of time, because any longer than that, things get unpredictable. They get too volatile. We end up building things that we put down unfinished because they're no longer wanted. And in that short period, we kick off with a bit of planning. We have a look over the next few weeks and we work out what really matters. In the next few weeks, we need to deliver this stuff for this reason. Scrum, as most of the agile world, is very goal focused. It's not about the output, but the outcomes. So a Scrum team is going to talk about why they're doing the work more than what the work is. They as a team need to know what the work is, but you as a stakeholder, you as a leader, need to know why it matters and how it fits into a broader piece. Once they've determined what matters and why it matters and how to do it, every day they're going to check in. Are we working on the right stuff? Are we working in the right way? Based on what we've learnt over the last day, how do we be better? At the end of that short period, they invite the stakeholders in and they have a conversation about the thing they're building, the product they're building, the problem they're solving. How do we improve it? Based on what you know, what you can see as a senior leader, as a stakeholder of this piece of work, how can you see it being better? And they take that learning in and they're going to consider it in the next cycle. But while they're paused, they're also going to have a think about how they can be better as a team. Not how do they improve the product? That was your conversation with them. But how do they work better? How do they change their process? What tools, technologies, what relationships do they need to shore up? What skills do they need to add to the team? And that's it. Because what goes next is we're back into the planning, with back at the start of this iteration, these very simple cycles. When we strip all of the language away from Scrum, for me, is common sense. We have a problem that keeps changing on us. So we're going to work in short periods. We're going to stay in touch and make sure we're working on the most important things individually and at the team level, but also with the wider organization, which is where you likely come in. Okay? So that we're always working on the right thing. This is agile in its intended way. We're not talking about big A agile that you've probably seen and read about. We're talking about the leopard, its ability to change direction even at high speeds so that it can achieve the outcome it wants. This is what we want at teams, and this, I suspect, is what you are looking at the world of agile and Scrum in particular for the organization. How can you set up an organization to be responsive, to be adaptable, to be agile? Well, it's a difficult question. And you will have people say, come on my course. And if you're interested in a course, come on my course. We'll talk about it for a couple of days. And you'll go away and some of it will be useful. But the reality is, every implementation of Scrum, every time that I've worked with an organization, it's been different because you're solving different problems. You have different people with different skills. You're in different contexts. So what worked for one isn't necessarily going to work for you. And the trick here is having people to help guide you through this. Having people who are within your organization, if you're fortunate enough, or can come into your organization with their experience and help you build the case for it, gather the data. Very often, and I will put my hand up as a consultant, we've come in and done agile to people and it doesn't work. Instead, what I would want you to consider is start small, build evidence, create the case for trying something bigger. In the same way as with an experiment, we start with something simple to test the hypothesis. Does this hypothesis stand up to the simplest test we can think of? If so, let's invest a little bit more time and a little bit more money. When you're bringing Agile into an organization, when you're bringing Scrum into an organization, you want to do the same thing. Start with a pilot, not something that garners lots of attention from leaders, something small, relatively insignificant, something that your chief exec is not going to turn up to every 2 weeks to make sure it's going all right, and they will move everything out of the way for you to make sure it goes well. Prove it somewhere in the shade, out of the limelight. Okay? Find a team who's willing to try it. It could be software, but it doesn't have to be. Anybody who has a volatile, uncertain space to work in, where the problems can shift and change as customers' needs shift and change, get them to start it. One team working in a corner of the business, give them enough support that they can do it, but not so much support that they're insulated from the rest of the organization. Because that way you're going to develop a business case, you're going to provide evidence that when it is working, you can go and talk to people about how it works here. And for me, this is often the missed piece. What you are going to do with Scrum, what you are going to do with an agile approach is different to what your competitors are going to do. So you can't pick up and use what they use without changing it, without adapting it. It doesn't make any sense. When I see this happen, and I've seen it an awful lot, all I remember is one of my mentors giving me a very vivid descriptor for it. Mick Jagger is a rock and roll legend. He is known for dancing around on stage, singing with his top off. If I hire Wembley Stadium and dance around singing with my top off, I suspect I'm not going to be Mick Jagger because I don't have the skills, I don't have the talents, I haven't put in the work he has to be there as that legend with a packed stadium. I'm just a weird middle aged man. Don't assume that you can pick up what other people have done before. You need to try things out. Start small and grow it. As your confidence grows, this is going to help you. This way of working is going to support what you need it to do. You can grow things. And at the end of it, you'll be your own rock and roll legend. You don't have to copy someone.